Hello, and welcome to this episode of Takeoff into DeFi. Today's episode is with a new vault company called RockSolid. RockSolid are building vaults that work with rETH. So you basically deposit your rETH in there, and they will then go and use that rETH in DeFi strategies, earning you a really nice yield. From RockSolid, we have the two co-founders. We have Ben and Stephen. They tell us about who they are, where they got the idea for RockSolid from, how it came about, and then they tell us about RockSolid, the product itself, how it works, the security checks, the audits, all that good stuff that's gone on, their partner companies, and how it all integrates together to work with Rocket Pool, how they have actually integrated with Rocket Pool itself, which is really awesome. And I think it's one of the first of its kind of collaborations. And then we get a walk through their website. So we talk about how to deposit, how to take a position, what kind of fees are charged, all of that good stuff. And it's really exciting about how it's actually integrated into Rocket Pool as well. So let's listen to what Stephen and Ben have to say, and let's get straight into the episode.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have Ben and Stephen here from RockSolid. They're both, like I said, the co-founders of RockSolid. And Stephen, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about your crypto journey and how did you get to RockSolid and building this really cool protocol?
Sure thing, Wack. But thanks for having me. Long time listener. So excited to be on for the first time. Yeah, started my career in software engineering and high frequency trading. So it was always into sort of that intersection of software and finance. So you can imagine that led pretty directly to crypto, initially just as an interested observer, and then, starting to play around with trading. During that same time, I was working at Cloudflare. Actually, Cloudflare has a lot of crypto customers. So it was starting to see from the outside of crypto, the growth of the industry. And then eventually that sort of intersection of the thing that I was really interested in and that I wanted to do, I had to make that my full time. So left Cloudflare to join the Mina protocol. It's a layer 1 ZK led product there for a couple of years. And most importantly, and most relevant today, for the sort of last 3 years, two and a bit years, I've been a Rocket Pool node operator. And so again, that kind of intersection of the technology, the finance, the the infrastructure just really appealed to me. Joined the community, loved everything about the community, from trading to meeting folks at East Denver and a couple of other events. Really enjoyed it and wanted to do something in the ecosystem, but wasn't quite sure what. And was talking to people, talked to the NodeSet guys. I'd actually had a similar idea to NodeSet, and going through this sort of founder journey, I guess, but landed on the fact that what rETH really needed actually was better integration into DeFi. And to be more useful as a token, and can talk more about it versus Lido and all of that. But that was really the long winding journey. And then told Ben about this, the great idea. And he joined me.
That's so cool. So we'll actually talk about what RockSolid is next. But before we do that, Ben, why don't you tell us what your journey in crypto is as well?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, similar to Steve, I started my career in traditional finance. I worked in consulting, which is where we would kind of go into financial institutions, banks, hedge funds, some of the biggest institutions in the world, and kind of help them with their strategy, try and help them run their business better. I was always fascinated with technology, finance, politics and policy governance. So crypto really was the sort of confluence of all of these things. I sort of first really started getting involved in crypto end of 2016. I was a gamer as well, actually, in my free time. And so had kind of heard about Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff. And I'm ashamed to admit I'd heard about it and I thought, this is all rubbish. It's just people doing dark web shit and buying drugs and, didn't really seem relevant to me. But it was the end of 2016 that first heard about Ethereum. And it was actually, ironically, while I was working in one of these banks and was chatting to kind of an engineer there, and he was explaining the concept of smart contracts to me. And I'm like, okay, this kind of makes sense. I can see how you can actually build something with this and do something with this. And that's what piqued my interest. And then that was my kind of gateway into crypto. And then back into Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it now. but I kind of needed this, like, I guess, reason, like, thing that you could do with it to make me care. And so, yeah, Ethereum really was my gateway into crypto. And then, yeah, seeing inside all of these banks and institutions, just sort of thinking like, there's got to be a better way to do finance than what I'm seeing here. Yes, that was kind of the start of my journey. And yeah, from Australia, as you can tell from my accent, moved over to the US, to the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and started getting involved full time with crypto there. And yeah, working at the Mina protocol, which is where I met Steve. Yeah, and then after being there for a few years, we sort of decided to jump ship and start RockSolid. And yeah, it's sort of part of the mission and vision that Steve's touched on, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. We're really trying to make the Rocket Pool community and make rETH better, basically. I really liked the Rocket Pool community, that it kind of lived its values. After being in crypto for a while, there's a lot of decentralization theater, and people sort of talk the talk about DAOs and governance and all this stuff. But, you take 2 seconds to look under the hood, and it's the VCs and the founders and the core team that really sort of run the show and pull the strings. But yeah, it's like really quite remarkable that Rocket Pool is one of the few teams that kind of, actually lives those values and actually lives up to what crypto is supposed to be, but in most places isn't. So yeah, that obviously leads to its own set of challenges. There's pros and cons, and there's reasons why people run centralized organizations instead of decentralized organizations. But yeah, I think it's really nice that Rocket Pool actually does kind of walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Ben, were you a node operator as well?
I was not, no. So I'm not technical. So yeah, and actually we'll talk about this as part of sort of the journey of why RockSolid and why we help. But the sort of quick answer there was, always had been massively attracted to DeFi and dipped my toe in DeFi, but as a non-technical user was kind of terrified, like, what is this thing that I'm signing? Like, I don't understand what this message means. Can I trust this? I'm someone who's really sort of conscious of security and, keeping my private keys secure and not getting wrecked. But as part of that and being a non-technical user, it's like, well, I'm just not going to sign what I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not going to interact with this new protocol if it hasn't been battle tested for at least 12 months, because I'm not going to be the one that gets wrecked. Yeah. So to answer your question, like, as part of the node operation, yeah, for the longest time it was like that. I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to lose my ETH. And so, yeah, just kind of, it's a shame that I always just kind of kept like one sort of step removed from the cutting edge, because I didn't trust myself, frankly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, but having Steve, and he's the tech guy, so that was my gateway into.
That's awesome. So let's talk about what RockSolid is then. So Steve, you mentioned that you guys have been working on this for a couple of years. Well, you started exploring the idea of doing something for a couple of years. When did you get the idea of RockSolid, and how did that grow? And why don't you tell the listeners what RockSolid actually is?
So yeah, I guess the one last twist in the journey of how it got to here was I remember a Bankless episode when Lido's stake was going towards 33%, and there was a lot of talk about it. And one thing the Bankless guy said was like, well, if we want a better LST, like, we can just build one. Like, everyone stop complaining. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But it was like, but we have this great LST. It's just like, it's not winning in terms of market share, especially at that time. Like, why is that? And that's what led to a lot of conversations. Yeah, that eventually led to the final form. So what is RockSolid? We're a liquid vaults platform. So we help protocols. We help DATs, distributed asset treasuries. We help stablecoins to offer the best of DeFi to their token holders. And for a token holder, so let's take Rocket Pool as the protocol working with us. For an rETH holder, we give you single-click access to the best of DeFi. So it's that single-click experience where I deposit here in the vault, and I have professional asset managers working for me to deploy that to the best of DeFi. And that might be, anything from leveraged looping on mainnet. It might be taking advantage of a new incentive scheme on an emerging LP. Might be depositing into some incentivized pool. Or crucially, it might be that we are, and our partners are actually negotiating new incentives on behalf of, of rETH, because it's pooled there in the vault, and so we're able to strike preferential deals. So that is the highest level what RockSolid is.
And are there any similar products on the market right now that people might have heard of, so they can get kind of like a mental idea of what you guys will be doing?
Yeah, great question. I think EtherFi is probably the most similar in terms of the EtherFi Liquid Vaults product. So they kind of did, staking, then restaking, then Liquid Vaults, and now cash cards, I think. But yeah, Liquid Vaults. There are a couple of others out there, but they're the biggest.
I mean, the thing I'd add to that actually is, I mean, Lido launched a product very similar to this only a few weeks ago, as of the time of recording. So if you sort of navigate to the Lido webpage now, they've got a little tab that they call Earn or Stake and Earn. Yeah, so it's a similar product to that, and it's great that good timing actually that Rocket Pool will now have this same sort of functionality and same product that Lido only just recently.
That's awesome. So there are a couple of things in there, Stephen, that you mentioned that really made me feel like this is really exciting. Is there's the idea of the one-click integration. That means that hopefully it'll be really easy for DeFi noobs to trust, to integrate basically. Right now, one of the things is really good strategy, for example, is to provide liquidity on Balancer, for example, right? Like you can get some decent rewards there, or Uniswap on Unichain. So if you're an rETH holder, you need to bridge your ETH over to Unichain, have half of it as wrapped ETH, half of it as rETH, deposit it into a liquidity pool, set your parameters, all that kind of stuff, and then earn your rewards. That's quite daunting, like bridging, setting up all that kind of stuff. So I presume that is the kind of stuff that the vault will just do.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd even go further than what you said. Like those are great examples, but then if it's say concentrated liquidity, right, you fall out of range, like you're now not earning any reward. So you've got to be monitoring those positions. Leverage looping's another popular one. But funding rates can and do change. Like we had the Justin event recently where Justin's son pulled all his ETH out, and we're going through the kiln event at the moment, and that changes things. And we kind of joke sometimes, once you get past doing a single strategy on mainnet, you kind of become a mini hedge fund in your basement, like having to track funding rates, track DPEGs, monitoring your positions are still within range for that sort of thing. So yes, taking all of that away in terms of the monitoring, the bridging, the assessing what is the best opportunity at any given point in time. So we work with a professional asset manager called Tulipa Capital. They manage around $300 million across their own proprietary fund and other vaults. And yeah, they're our sort of DeFi brains that basically execute the vision of the RockSolid rETH vault, which is essentially to go find the best risk-adjusted returns for rETH at any given point in time, and to go and negotiate better deals for rETH, which is already happening. We can talk a bit about that too.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really, really cool to hear. So it seems like your product's going to be really easy to use. However, then that brings up some scary parts, right? Like, hey, who's this person who will have access to my rETH? How do I know they're going to put it in something good, instead of something bad? What are some of the dangers here? Can you kind of highlight what some of the scary parts of this might be, just to tell us then how you are mitigating those?
Sure. Do you want to start, Ben, or do you want me to go?
You go. I'll jump in after.
Yeah. So I guess starting point is it is a different model than Rocket Pool. So it's not a sort of decentralized org where people vote on what the strategies are, and then only then do they get put forward. The strategies are decided in consultation between our asset manager and us. Them basically always looking for the best opportunities out there in DeFi, and us wanting to keep balanced sort of allocations, like not everything on one L2, not everything on one protocol. And, so we have this dual party set up in terms of identifying strategies and implementing strategies. In terms of the technology that sits behind that, so the key technology is an MPC wallet. A lot of folks probably have heard of it. For those who haven't, it's the same as a multi-sig. It just varies slightly in the implementation in that multi-sigs require full signatures, and then when the threshold is reached, then transactions played. With an MPC, each signer has a shard of the key, no one can recreate the key on their own, but all the signatures of the shards can then sign a transaction and execute. So it's just like a safe, but implemented as MPC. And that's shared between us, between Tulipa, the asset manager, and then there's also an external security council as well that's able to sort of step in if there was ever unavailability on any of the partners.
And then the smart contracts as well, maybe want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Smart contracts, fully audited. They're it's implementation of a really cool ERC actually called ERC 7540, which is asynchronous tokenized vaults. And that's the asynchronous version of ERC 4626, which some folks might have heard of, which is tokenized vaults. So that's the thing that first set the standard of deposit, redeem, like convert to assets, convert to shares, like kind of a standard interface for vaults. The reason we chose this set of smart contracts, one already audited and in production, one about $150 million under management by this same set of smart contracts. They were developed by a company called Lagoon, by the way. They're another one of our partners as the provider of these smart contracts. So yeah, audited multiple times by Nethermind. We've got those linked up on the site. Go look at them. Already lots of AUM and some secure. We evaluated a bunch of like these providers. One of the things we liked was this asynchronous feature. So for the fully decentralized permissionless crowd, it's a little scary because what it means is there is a delay between when you request a withdrawal and when you withdraw. But it's intentional. And the reason is that the way that like vaults have been drained in the past and goes for a lot of DeFi protocols is things like Oracle's mispricing and then the protocol having no sort of safety buffer, right? That as soon as there's a valuation change that, that shares get minted or redeemed or whatever. With the asynchronous version, there's this multi-step process where a separate wallet proposes a valuation. And so that's from our asset manager, Tulipa. We review that independently, check we're okay with it. Only if we're okay with it do we accept the valuation, update, and then redemptions are processed. So that happens every 24 hours. So people aren't, locked up for a long period. But yeah, there are some centralized aspects of control and there are some trust assumptions.
Yeah, I understand.
Sorry, Wack, I just want to add two things to that. One sort of on the technical and then one on the sort of philosophical, I guess. Yeah, on the technical side, one thing I want to make really clear, there are trust assumptions, but there's also no party or no individual has unilateral control. RockSolid does not have unilateral control. RockSolid cannot unilaterally move funds. No individual within RockSolid can unilaterally move funds. And the same is true for Tulipa. Tulipa is an organization, can only move funds into sort of strategies that have been pre-whitelisted and pre-approved. And they cannot unilaterally, withdraw or sort of use user funds either. So there are it is not fully decentralized and there are trust assumptions, but no single entity and no single individual within those entities has unilateral control. And then the thing I would say sort of philosophically that is connected to that is, yes, it is not fully decentralized, and yes, there are trust assumptions. We have made those sort of trade-off decisions deliberately. We're not trying to hide them. All this stuff is sort of described in our docs. You can check those out, docs.rocksolid.network, for some of these design decisions. And we recognize that this may not be for everyone in the Rocket Pool community. And, as I said earlier, really respect the fact that folks in Rocket Pool really, really care about decentralization. That's fine if it's not for everyone, but I think it's useful for some people. And what we're really about is just trying to make this as sort of the best user experience as possible, being able to move as quickly as possible to access some of these, point in time DeFi opportunities that if, you have a DAO and a voting process and everything's transparent, you can get front run, or you may miss the thing anyway because it takes a while. So, it's on a spectrum, but that's kind of where we fall on the spectrum, and we're not trying to.
Yeah, that makes total sense. As long as you're transparent and open with the users about what the trade-offs are, and explain to them that there are trade-offs, then that people can go in making an informed decision. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. Let's talk about the positives first, right? So rETH, if you're just holding a vanilla rETH right now, you can get around 2.5% return on your rETH. If you use the rETH in DeFi, you can get maybe up to 5%. If you are following incentives and like really, really active and aware of what's going on, you could probably get up to 10 to 15% a year. What kind of returns do you think, just putting it into RockSolid, what could that get?
Let me, I'll take this one to start, Steve. Yeah, so again, sort of a quick, I guess, sort of caveat. We denominate the what we call rewards we sort of measure that relative to ETH. So so there's the kind of 2.5% base that you're getting from the rETH, and then the additional rewards that you're getting from DeFi strategies. So the sort of estimated and expected rewards for the vault is kind of in the 10% range as a sort of baseline. And one thing I'd caveat as well is that, like with all DeFi, these numbers move quickly. This isn't not financial advice. Past performance doesn't indicate future performance. All of those sort of caveats that you would, disclaimers that you would expect, and none of this is a promise. But we're hoping and expecting for around sort of 10% returns. That would be the sort of 2.5% rewards from the staking, and then sort of around sort of 7.5 to 10% from DeFi strategies. And the way we sort of achieve those is similar to what you said, Wak. There's kind of baseline DeFi sort of things, looping, lending, borrowing, that sort of stuff. But the sort of alpha, if you will, that I think the vault can add is by chasing these high sort of point in time incentive schemes that are being paid by the DeFi protocols. And importantly, as Steve's alluded to, actually negotiating these ourselves. And the reason why the vault is able to do that is because when there's this single pot of rETH kind of sitting there, I mean, let's just throw out a number. Let's say there's 50 mil in the vault. It becomes a pretty easy conversation with DeFi protocols like, hey, do you want 50 mil of liquidity? And they'll say, sure. And then we'll say, okay, well, what are you going to offer for it? And maybe rETH isn't integrated right now. So first you need to integrate rETH, and then we'll give you the TVL. And then once you've integrated it, what are the preferential incentives that you're going to put on this rETH pool? And so it kind of gives us that bargaining power to be able to negotiate the types of incentives and deals that sort of a retail user just kind of blindly navigating around on DeFi. Even if you are really actively monitoring the latest incentives and moving around, one of the kind of sad realities of DeFi, and again, this is what I sort of mentioned earlier about decentralization kind of theater and not matching reality, is that a lot of these incentives are negotiated off-chain in private backroom deals, one-to-one relationships, whales talking to other whales. And if you're just a DeFi user, even if a very active DeFi user, you're not going to access those. So we're able to sort of get access to those, which then increases the rewards on the vault even higher. That's the kind of baseline. And then the other thing that I should mention that we can talk about in more detail if we want is for the first 12 weeks of the vault, 11 weeks, sorry, we're putting extra ETH incentives into the vault to make that return even higher. And importantly, we're paying that in rETH into the vault, fully liquid, no lockups. It's $150,000 worth of rETH as of the time that we bought it, which was about a week ago. And we're dripping that into the vault every week. The way that works sort of mathematically is, if you can imagine kind of a curve, actually it's a diminishing curve, is that the less rETH that is in the vault currently, the greater kind of pro rata share that the depositor will receive of this kind of fixed incentive that we're paying each week. So the incentive there is to be an early depositor and access early to get that greater share of those incentives. And the way the math works out is, sort of if the vault's sort of at 5 million TVL, for example, that those incentives boosted up to about a 20+% APR, and then it kind of sort of diminishes about at 25% TVL. It's something like kind of 12% APR. So, but still, it's real liquid ETH. It's not points. It's not airdrop future vague airdrops. It's real rETH that you can sort of access now. So, they're the kind of like three components of the rewards. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, that's really great information there, Ben. Let's talk about a potential negative here. So say that you guys have got 10,000 rETH in your vault, and it's, across 10 different strategies right now, earning income, which is amazing. One of those gets hacked for 1,000 rETH goes missing. What happens in that situation?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll start by saying we do a lot of work to prevent that in the first place. There is quite a bit of defense in depth in terms of of which bridges we're prepared to use, which L2s we're prepared to go to, which protocols we're prepared to use. And that's both like, especially leveraging Tulip or our partners' expertise there as well. The main defense is limiting allocations. So, at launch will be spread, again, it changes as things happen, but spread across about 5 different protocols with a maximum allocation of 20%. So already we're like ensuring that, that it's not all eggs in one basket. Another thing is, again, having like managers that have been in the space a long time. Protocols are hacked. There is, again, some of this backroom dealing where often some parties are made whole and not all. Not a guarantee, you never know, but you're a much better chance of getting your funds back, especially if it's a VC-backed protocol and you're one of the larger depositors. So again, you've got just being in there with a bigger pool gives a bit more strategy, a bit more strength, negotiating strength. And then, we didn't talk about this before, but in all of the sort of policies about the way funds are deployed, like there's a lot of rules and limits, before even funds can get to a protocol. So with all of that said, yes, it's DeFi. It's still possible for a protocol, even an established one, to get hacked. We limit the blast radius, but we can't, we can't magic away all risk.
Yeah, you get a return-based
risk. There is
of
risk.
course. Yes.
Well, again, we're not trying to sort of shy away from that. With
Exactly,
all DeFi,
exactly.
there's risks. There's lots of funds, lots of capital, but there are processes in place in the way that Steve said to try to mitigate that blast radius.
And I think that's what makes sense, right? Like, it would be naive or disingenuous to say that, we're not going to get hacked, like, or anything that we deposit into is not going to get hacked. Of course, that the hope is that that never happens, right? And that's what we all want. But the reality is that DeFi protocols do get hacked all the time. But it sounds like, your approach to it is really smart and sensible one. And that totally makes sense. And would those then, if that hypothetically, God forbid, it never happens, of course, but if that was to happen, then would those losses kind of be like socialized across the whole pool, right? Like, it just takes a hit, basically.
Yeah, the mechanism is when the next valuation happens, the assets under management would be lower, and then so the claim on assets that each share has is lower.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but like you said, and just to reassure the audience, like, you'll be taking steps to minimize that as much as possible. You'll be using battle-tested, like, long-established protocols as much as possible, not, chasing the new shiny thing to get those extra few percent. Like, there'll be some conservatism involved in that process. Before we go and have a look at the website and, like, talk through the protocol and what it looks like, what can you deposit into your vaults and how does that work?
I can take that one, Steve, and then you
Sure.
can, give us the demo after that. Yeah, so the vault itself is denominated in rETH, and that is, again, something that we're proud of because that is increasing rETH TVL. It's deploying rETH into DeFi, and so increasing like the reach and scope of rETH. So yeah, we're sort of really excited to sort of help the Rockable protocol in that way. But in terms of deposit assets, we take rETH, obviously. We take ETH, we take staked ETH from Lido, and we take wrapped ETH. And if the user is depositing a non-rETH asset, there's sort of a convenience tool in our front end that routes it via 0x and swaps it into rETH. Again, sort of hoping to sort of benefit the Rockable protocol there by not minting, but swapping into new rETH, which, indirectly leads to minting demand. And, you can almost think of this as a vampire attack in some way on these other kind of ETH, LST sort of equivalent assets. So
I really like that idea. Like, we need more rETH. So that's awesome. One of the things that I really liked you guys mentioning was this way of kind of using your clout, and your the TVL that you have as a kind of BD, as kind of like a business development angle. Can you just spend a minute? I know you kind of talked about this already a little bit, but just kind of highlight how this would work and how RockSolid would kind of act as an unofficial BD arm for rETH.
Yeah, go on, Ben.
Cool. Yeah, and want to stress that this is, it's all sort of quote unquote unofficial, as you said, Wack, but like in practice, when we're out there, like these are the way the conversations are taking place, which is kind of what I said earlier. We had this bucket of rETH, like, hello, DeFi protocol. Do you want liquidity in this pool? Sure, we have X tens of millions of rETH to offer you. If rETH isn't integrated now, integrate it. That's the first requirement if you want to get access to this money. And the second thing is sort of show us the incentives. Yes, we see that you're offering X incentive to the public, but because we're a whale now, we sort of demand and require a bit of extra incentive. So what can you throw in? And yeah, that conversation just happens on repeat, basically. It sort of happens at the kind of DeFi protocol level. It happens at the L2 level, maybe new alt L1. If they're sort of EVM, that could happen at that level as well. So you just kind of have that conversation on repeat. And actually, just to use a real example, and we can sort of talk about this later as well in more detail if we talk about the sort of the strategies that we're launching with, but new L2 Hemi, HEMI, if people haven't heard of that, new L2 launching on EVM. We had a conversation with them. They've got a bridge. They've got a canonical bridge. rETH wasn't on that bridge. We chatted to them and said, hey, like, can you integrate rETH? And they did. So now rETH is sort of on this new chain. And then we said, okay, if you want this in the sort of the DeFi pools that you're spinning up on this chain, like throw in extra incentives. And they did. And anyone can access these. And so now, yeah, there is a heavily incentivized rETH pool on a new L2 and on its canonical bridge. And that was through conversations that we had with that team.
That's fantastic.
We sort of achieved that in less than a week, I would say. So
amazing.
Hoping that we're able to kind of have many more of those conversations. And yeah, as I said, having a big bucket of money makes it a much easier conversation to have than like, please do this, because we think it's a good thing for you to do and it's good for Ethereum and decentralization. I wish people cared more about those things, but yeah, having a chunk of money to sort of shop around makes it an easier conversation.
You also mentioned a little bit earlier about how you're adding $150,000 of incentives to the pool. For example, like Hemi, right? Like you will be bridging there. They're likely a new L2, so at some point they might have a token that you would get as a large depositor. Potentially you might get an airdrop there. If there's some pool there that is incentivizing liquidity, they might have a token at some point in the future. How would the people depositing into the vault have any rights to those airdrops that are coming in?
Yeah, so there's different ways this can be handled, and it sort of depends on, I guess, the conversation with the protocol, and depends on the sort of approach that we decide to take. Yeah, there's two ways. Either the depositor could have a direct claim on that airdrop themselves, which would mean there'd have to be some sort of like claim mechanism, some sort of, smart contract or a Merkle campaign or something like that gives them direct access. Or the alternate model, which is the simpler model, to be honest, is that it's sort of the underlying rETH itself that has the claim on the airdrop, which would be our vault.
As in we liquidate it. Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
and then the
rETH.
Correct. And then so the rETH sort of has that claim in the vault. The vault liquidates the sort of new airdrop token, convert that into rETH, and then the depositor kind of receives the rETH equivalent share of that airdrop. So there's kind of two different models.
And the reason
really
that it's the reason it's not like definitely one way or the other, there may be a negotiation with the protocol about they may want it to go directly to the users or not, or the amounts just might be too small to make sense for an individual to claim, but it's still meaningful to liquidate and add to the vault. So that's why it's a sort of case by case.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing here is that there will potentially be a lot of incentives coming to the vault and to the pool. That that 10% number, I guess, will include all of these different incentives that you'd be getting as well. It sounds really, really good. I'll be honest, this sounds fantastic. You guys have got from the way that you've explained it, you've got a really nicely designed vault system here. It sounds really attractive. So great work on that. How much does it cost?
Yeah, great question. So fee structure, there's a 1% service fee. So that's also called AUM. So 1% on total assets of the vault. That's split between all of the various partners. There's a 10% performance fee. So when the vault strategies are making money, there's a 10% fee on that. But importantly, and this is a nice thing about smart contracts, and people can go verify this in code, there's a high watermark feature, which means like you take fees on the way up, but never on the way down and then catching back up again. So it's only ever on new performance. So 1 and 10. And then there's also a fee flow of that to Rocket Pool as well, as one of the partners. Yeah. So that's that's exciting for everyone. And yeah, so we'll all grow together.
That's amazing. That's really, really, really cool to hear, Stephen. Thank you. And Ben, wait, I was thinking of a question. Yes. So going back to the incentives things, sorry, I should have asked this in the previous question, is are you guys offering any kind of token or anything that will come, like a RockSolid token at some point, any kind of points campaign? Is that going to be something that's happening or not happening?
Great question. So as Ben said, we're starting with our rETH incentives for this vault, which is unusual and awesome, by the way, because it's like money's there and you can go calculate what you're going to get, and that'll run for the first 3 months. So definitely no token or points in the next 3 months. After that, keeping our options open. We'll evaluate sort of where the market is and whether that makes sense for us. And if there's like a we've got some really cool ideas of like utility that a token could play in a vault, but we've been more focused on getting the product to market.
Yeah.
So yeah, not committing or anything there, like wait and see, watch and see. But if we were to launch a token, like we'd want it to have a reason to exist and have a reason to hold it and have some sort of value accrual. Yeah, we want the token to make sense, and so we're being like quite thoughtful about how we think about that and if and how and when.
Yeah, there's no rush for you guys to launch a token like tomorrow or anything. You can take your time with it and make sure that you have a solid use for it. Is there anything that you guys want to add about the protocol before we have a walkthrough of the website and the app design?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Stephen, I think you're the one who's going to be sharing your screen and giving us a walkthrough. So let's start with the RockSolid homepage.
All righty. All right. Is that showing up okay, Wack? Cool. So the URL that if folks watching along there is vip.rocksolid.network. We're recording this a few days before launch. So that's the pre-launch URL. The real one is rocksolid.network. I don't think we need to go through every sort of thing on the homepage, but there's us. Shiny new brand. We're in the pre-deposit campaign. Opening up to Rocket Pool very, very soon, and then public launch in a few days. We'll announce our fundraise and everything as part of that launch. More relevant though is that you can deposit. So 2 ways to deposit, and we'll cover both. So one is through our website, and there is a second, which I'll show in a second. But here's the list of vaults. Currently, a beautiful list of 1, the RockSolid rETH vault. And we've already got TVL in here. So
amazing.
Let's jump in and have a look. We wanted, really even before early supporters got involved, we wanted to show skin in the game, both through our own ETH, through our partners' ETH. So you're not depositing into an empty vault. And this is already being to work. It's not all fully deployed across all the strategies yet, but we're talking about what some of the strategies are. One of them, leverage looping is something we always try and do as well to try and, it's a nice protocol alignment thing. If funding rates permit, it's good for rETH to have leverage looping on rETH. But there's the TVL. We sort of break down what the components of the APR are. So there's the base strategy, and then sometimes there will be pending incentives if we've identified an airdrop that's coming, and that will be shown there. Some other details: we process redemptions every 24 hours. You can go see audits, look at all of the activity on chain. This is just all the people depositing and withdrawing. It's actually the wallet that controls the actual assets. There are a few ways, for the on-chain folks. For people listening, I'm just clicking there into Etherscan. It's also links just to go and quickly see on Dbank things like what positions we have in various protocols. Like I said, we're ramping up at the moment, so there's a bunch of borrowing on Spark. It'll be fun for folks to sort of, follow along what the vault is doing. You won't always be able to see everything on those because there might be off-chain and deals as well, and talk about that. So when you deposit, you see your holdings, all the fee information, contract addresses, and here we break down. So I'm looking at the list of strategies. So leading up today, the ETH was just sitting there as liquid rETH. And then we just started adding the incentives. And then this is a forward looking of how at this point in time we plan to deploy it. These things change regularly, but just to give folks insight into what's coming, we're looking at just as a couple of examples, leverage looping on Spark, depositing into Linnea. Folks have probably seen there's been a big campaign with Linnea. And we see good opportunity there. There's opportunities in Katana, another sort of L2 that's launched recently. So there's sort of list of strategies. The deposit experience, very sort of familiar for anyone that's, well, if you staked with Rocket Pool or you've staked with anything else, really. And like Ben was mentioning, so you can also deposit other tokens. If you do, well, to strictly speaking, you can't deposit other tokens. You can, in the app, swap other tokens into rETH. Yay, always in rETH. And yeah, actually very specifically, that's one thing, there's 150 grand of incentives. So we want people taking their ETH or their staked ETH and minting rETH to take advantage of it. That's what we want. Is that, do you guys see the wallet pop up?
Yeah, we see it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, so that's just an approval. Looks the same as anything else. Actually, I should have done MetaMask. We've got better branding, actually. The MetaMask recognizes the protocol already.
Oh, nice.
In MetaMask, so you'll see interacting with RockSolid. For anyone watching, if you see it, say, interacting with Lagoon, Lagoon's the smart contract provider. That is, they sometimes show up as the protocol.
And that's what it says, Lagoon Depositor 1 right there,
right
on the bottom,
there you go.
just above the sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the name of my test wallet. But yeah, so for folks watching, you're depositing rETH and you're getting back rock.rETH. So rock.rETH is the vault token name. That represents your share on the assets. I will go ahead and do that. Deposits. So I mentioned it's an the vault follows the asynchronous vault patterns. Asynchronous vaults can have asynchronous deposits and withdrawals, or synchronous deposits and asynchronous withdrawals. We go for synchronous deposits because we just prefer that experience that you deposit, you straight away get your shares. I think that's nicer. You can add to your wallet. That's kind of it. But there's another way to deposit, which we're very excited to share with everyone. So yeah, we've been super close to the Rocket Pool team throughout the development of this, both in terms of identifying the need of, what was a good area for us to work on, and that was in rETH demand, right? And the way we agreed that to get rETH demand, we want integration in DeFi and ever more liquidity for rETH, and those two things go together, right? The more into DeFi you are. And so this is an integration directly on the Rocket Pool front end. So very grateful to the core team for being open to this. But also, that's a sign of confidence, right? That, we've built this thing to be rock solid. So yeah, new area of the front page, DeFi vaults. One-click, all the things we talked about, one-click access to rewards. You can have a look at all the strategies, both on-chain and we transparently share off-chain ones as well. It's expertly curated by Tulipa Capital. And I'll go directly to deposit rETH, but I'll just mention that for folks that are just coming to Rocket Pool to stake ETH, they also get the opportunity at the end of the staking flow to then deposit in the vault. So you kind of you have this okay, what can I do with it? It's right there. And actually, Whack, I'll just mention this. You would have seen this. The amount of times in Discord where folks have come in and said I just read about Rocket Pool. I love it. Just minted some rETH. Now, what do I do with it? Where can I use it in DeFi? And it's here is the spreadsheet. And it's amazing that the community maintains that spreadsheet. But they're kind of sort of, that's not what people are often expecting. They're expecting something sort of a bit more curated, a bit more polished. And so like that's that's what we're bringing. So yeah, from the front page, you can go directly to the Vault deposit.
Yeah, and this is on the
Rocket
Pool website, so it's fully integrated onto the actual Rocket Pool website itself. So that's really, really cool. Yeah.
Yep. And then for the first time ever, I'm not just immediately connecting. So let's give this a second. I'm just making sure I'm not getting a pop-up window hidden here. No. Let me try a different wallet. I don't have ETH in this wallet. So we're going to see a little bit of real demo-ness. I'm not sure why Rabby's not popping up there. Maybe the other transaction hasn't confirmed. But yeah, for folks who land here and they don't have rETH yet, they can go directly and stake ETH. When you do, it's the regular. Actually, I'll disconnect and see if we can see it again, Rabby. But you have essentially the same deposit flow that we just saw in the in our homepage. So the Rocket Pool integration is really focused on the actual deposit flow. And then, you can manage, looking at the sort of the assets of the vault, your own positions, redeeming, that's all over in the RockSolid part of the app. Apologies for the not popping up Rabby there. I don't know what's happening. It's normally pretty reliable, but there you go.
That's
okay. Last thing, I'm going to manually disconnect and reconnect. There we go. That looks better. We'll put that one on third web. The Rocket Pool provider. So yeah, similar interface. You can see what you're depositing, what you're getting, proven deposit. Familiar sort of UI that you see on Rocket Pool, and then the similar sort of experience that you saw back on our homepage. That's what you see for Rocket Pool. So try to be sympathetic kind of to the brand as well. Keep it sort of feeling very much Rocket Pool, but make it clear when you're interacting with RockSolid. And then we'll get the actual. So we just did the approval, and then again depositing rETH for shares in the vault.
Very nice. So on the RockSolid website, it said that the vault is the rETH vault with more vaults coming soon. What other vaults do you guys have coming soon? Or is that not something that you really have talked about yet?
Yeah, great question. We don't have anything to share publicly there yet, other than this is a platform that makes it really easy for protocols to integrate liquid vaults into their ecosystem. So we worked with Rocket Pool and really closely with the core team, and they wanted to be quite hands-on in as you can imagine, integrating RockSolid into the homepage, and work with Nick from the core team especially. Shout out Nick, love your work. But we can also really take the load off other protocols and really drive the integration so that it's more of a single click experience. We are talking to a bunch of protocols now, some of them LSDs, talking to distributed asset treasuries. So as you know, WAC, this is the latest, a lot of money flowing into those things. And yeah, I mean, for people who aren't close to it, it can be easy to assume that like those treasury companies, because they're raising billions of dollars, are all super sophisticated in DeFi. And actually, no, they're usually super sophisticated in public markets, right? In raising capital and reporting and running a public company. And so we're also talking to a number of those DATs, some of whom are already working with Rocket Pool, right? That's been one nice thing we've seen. And so that's the reason it works for them is like they've got ETH. They have to choose what their risk tolerance is, but like they don't necessarily want to be managing all of this day to day. And that's something that vaults can really help with. We can tailor the strategies, and they also have a really interesting kind of problem to solve in terms of how revenue is recognized. So the SEC has very specific opinions on what is like other revenue, what is top line revenue, what's cost of goods, what's not. And it can be really like important just how funds flow through wallets and protocols. And so that's something, again, we can tailor the structure to make sure that DATs are able to meet their needs. And then, stable coins as well. There's a few opportunities there, nothing to share yet, but anywhere there's a stablecoin balance, like that shouldn't be earning zero, right? That should be earning high percentage. And so we're working to get, RockSolid vaults integrated everywhere there's balances, wallets,
And I think
custodians.
good opportunity to provide access to rETH to a lot of those other entities as well, like particularly around the DATs, like, making that process really simple for them. And because the decentralization of rETH, like that's something that a lot of these treasury companies really, really value. So I think there's lots of opportunities to kind of find ways to plug them into RockSolid vaults, plug them into kind of the Rocket Pool ecosystem. This is the first vault. It's definitely the flagship vault. We're really excited about this, and our immediate focus is on just making this successful and helping grow the sort of rETH TVL as well. So that's definitely our immediate focus.
Fantastic.
We
Really
kind of
good.
hope it becomes the sort of focal point for rETH DeFi. If the community can really rally around like this is the place, then we'll be able to start generating more and more returns. For rETH holders specifically.
It'd be a virtuous flywheel, right? Like we could really we could really have strength in numbers, and then those numbers would then have even more strength. So it sounds really exciting. And you could even I was a former IMC member, which is an incentives management committee in the Rocket Pool protocol. You could even go to someone like the IMC and be like, hey, we've got $1 million of rETH. We can provide liquidity. If you incentivize a pool, we can put our liquidity in there and get some of those incentives. That's the kind of thing that you could do as well. Like it's really, really cool that it works on so many different levels. So I'm very excited about this. I think that a lot of people who hold rETH would be excited about this as well, because they always want to do something with their rETH, right? And this, it seems like, will be a really, really great opportunity for them to do that. Is there anything that we didn't cover in the episode that either Ben or you, Steve, would like to cover before we wrap it all up?
Click here.
Yeah,
Incentives are waiting.
Yeah.
Glorious rETH future is waiting. Come join us.
It's so great. Thank you so much, Ben and Steve. Thank you for taking your time to explain, let us know who you guys are and let us know what RockSolid is, and also how we can actually use RockSolid. That is all really, really awesome stuff. So yeah, thank you for taking the time. And the project, when is it going to have this launch? I know this is going to go live at the time that we launch. So it's going to happen like right now. I guess you can go use it right now. Yeah.
The listeners, it'll be right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. That's really, really cool stuff. So thank you once more. And I wish you the absolute best of luck. And I know that I'm going to be talking about your vault a whole lot in the days and weeks to come on Rocket Fuel, and letting people know that there's some really great stuff going on there.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us on the show. Thanks for the Rocket Fuel community having us in Discord and on trading, and to the core team as well. It's been a really great collaboration already, and it's gonna get better from here.
I can't wait to see it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.